Rewilding is a radical new science of environmental recovery, returning land back to nature and promoting natural growth and processes in a bid to preserve our wildlife. Now, the conservation of nature has always been inherently political. A contrasting mix of values on how we should govern our relationship with nature is an inevitable cause for argument. In the case of rewilding, the concept of giving back our land to nature is more politicised than any conservation style before it. Despite case study evidence, such as the Knepp estate project in Sussex demonstrating the incredible cascade of healing effects rewilding can have on our wildlife, the relative scale and novelty of it can appear daunting or even like a dangerous step into the dark to many. So, is rewilding really as dangerous as the straw men make it out to be? Let's talk food security. The most common anti-rewilding argument I see is one of food security. They're valid fears. Obviously food is important, but often this is an unrealistic straw man argument. We want to see safe spaces for nature, not deprive us of our food source. I mean, no one's arguing for killing people off. This is a bit of a leap, mate. It seems to stem from a general slippery slope style argument of fear-mongering, portraying rewilding as an all-or-nothing endeavour, framing rewilding as an argument for all of our farmland to be given back to nature by a bunch of ignorant eco-activists who want to force us into food poverty for the sake of the animals. This just simply isn't true. Typically, rewilding as a term has been used to reference large-scale hands-off project. The aforementioned Knepp estate project in Sussex, for example, features 3,500 acres of what used to be intensely farmed land. Importantly, the farmland was intensely farmed because it had to be. The poor quality soil meant increasing amounts of fertilisers had to be poured onto the land, and incredibly expensive farm equipment had to be brought in to try and salvage it. Eventually, the owners, Isabella Tree and her husband, Sir Charles Burrell, took the leap and transformed the land into a pioneering rewilding project through reintroduction of grazing animals and allowing the growth of native plants. Now, the increased use of rewilding doesn't mean mass amounts of arable, good quality land should be given over. Instead, it presents itself as an alternative for struggling farmers, like Knepp, to generate wildlife havens in the process. Now, rewilding is inherently an umbrella term as well, for what is rather an in-depth and niche style of ecological recovery. It can range from the previously discussed large-scale style to small back garden style rewilding, where people grow their gardens in a nature-friendly way. This could mean allowing grass and native plants to grow more, inviting insect and bird life to thrive, or on a slightly larger scale, allowing local green spaces, parks and hedgerows to grow back in a similar manner to allow for the recovery of small mammals like the treasured hedgehog. This could even apply to active farmland, not abandoning it, but instead challenging the traditional ruthlessness of farming by allowing small areas to grow back with brambles and flowers, giving nature a little bit more space to breathe where we can. Rewilding does not mean destruction of our farmland. Secondly, when it comes to food itself, our incredibly consumerist and excessive lifestyle is a massive problem. According to the Charity Waste Resources Action Programme, or WRAP, the UK produced around 9.5 million tonnes of food waste in 2018. It has been said that of this waste, 6.4 million tonnes could have been eaten, the equivalent of over 15 billion meals. Now, let's break that down a little bit. 6.6 million tonnes of that came from households. 1.5 million tonnes, or only 16%, came from manufacturers, 1.1 million from hospitality and food service, and 0.3 million tonnes from the retail industry. If we demand less and waste less, we can nationally be much more self-sufficient in our food production. Rewilding doesn't threaten food security, our own lifestyles do. Rewilding simply challenges the fact that the way we live is inherently unsustainable and confronts us with the fact that in order to see the positive change we want, we need to change and adapt as a society. Now, it's important to keep in mind that rewilding isn't just a polar conservation versus farming debate, where we can't rewild and conserve alongside the evil of farming. Instead, we've got to remember that to many, farming isn't just a job, but a lifestyle passed through the generations. Attacking farming, and those who do it, as if it's solely their fault for our degraded landscapes, only alienates farmers further and puts them at odds with rewilding, discouraging participation going forward. For example, in an article in The Spectator in 2013, George Monbiot wrote, quote, "We pay billions to service a national obsession with sheep, and in return for which the woolly maggots kindly trash our countryside," end quote. He also referred to them as, quote, "the white plague." To him, he was covering an example of where the system had gone wrong and how rewilding approaches could create a better environment. Contrastingly, this was received by many Welsh farmers as a direct attack on their culture by an outsider, a middle-class Englishman at that. Consequentially, the term rewilding has become toxic in part of Wales, and in 2019, Rewilding Britain felt the need to withdraw from a Summit to Sea rewilding project they had initiated in Wales. The importance of farming in the UK cannot be understated, both economically, comprising of over 100,000 jobs, and as a matter of national identity, with our iconic rolling green hills of pasture and farmland, and the pride placed on farming since the Second World War. As such, rewilding must be done in a way in which farmers are included in the journey, supported financially by government subsidies and environmentally friendly farming techniques. We can progress our protection of nature without invalidating or attacking the thousands of people who work our land. The final topic I want to cover is the predator problem. It's important to note that predators aren't necessary for most rewilding projects so long as the excess herbivore populations are culled accordingly. The Knepp estate, for example, to ensure excess megafauna populations don't explode given the lack of predators, have numbers culled, allowing the landscape to remain in a relative balance, not decimated or drained too heavily by the free-roaming grazing population. This also prevents starvation due to overpopulation, an aspect of the Ulstersplassen rewilding project that many criticise. The culled animals are then sold as wild range meat, demonstrating a potential extra source of income for those who are looking to start large-scale rewilding projects. I'd like to also note that rewilding doesn't argue for the release of these massive herbivores all over the place, all over our land to subsist on our hedgerows and our green spaces and our parks. Instead, they are confined to rewilding projects where the carrying capacity of the land can support and sustain them as they would exist naturally in the wild. Overall, each of these key anti-rewilding arguments, no matter how well-meaning, are built around outdated, dogmatic worldviews and fueled by either a lack of information or the presence of disinformation. Rewilding does not threaten food security, and a change in societal consumption habits could significantly help our country's self-sustainability more than an increase in farmland ever could. Rewilding should not seek to demonise or alienate farmers, and instead works best with the support of local landowners and farmers. Finally, the reintroduction of grazing megafauna, if done in a thought-out, careful way, can have incredible cascading effects to the nature around them and do not pose a threat to the wildlife or to themselves. The topic of rewilding may be controversial, but deliberate attention and the addressing of what is understandably rational fears, breaking them down and exploring why it's not something to fight or worry about, will allow us to align these contrasting perspectives and champion rewilding as the large-scale conservation we desperately need to save and protect our natural world. Thank you for watching. Please, share your thoughts with Our Future UK in the comments below, especially if you have concerns surrounding rewilding you feel have been missed in this video. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. Take care.